We just cannot treat children as a piece on a game board. Here's our decision, roll the dice and just let it go and go from there. That's unacceptable.
A Washington man says a new state law harms children by taking them out of the homes that they may know and forcing them to live with biological parents they may have never lived with. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Deborah Knapp.
And I'm Rick Asway. Our investigation uncovered a major difference in the new minor guardianship law. It raises the burden of proof for people trying to get custody of a child from a parent. The Washington state senator who sponsored the legislation says lawmakers had no choice. Parental rights are protected by the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. He says the prior law was unconstitutional. Here's how it played out in one case. So this is your granddaughter's room?
Yes, it is.
Is this where she stayed when she lived with you as well?
Yes.
Joe Tooney's 4-year journey to get custody of his granddaughter started in May 2020. Kelso police say Scott Belinsky shot and killed Joe's daughter, Brittany, in the parking lot of this gas station. Scott is the little girl's paternal grandfather. He died by suicide at the scene.
It was a few days after my daughter's murder. We went to the courts and we got the guardianship.
Here's why Joe initially got guardianship. Joe's daughter had primary custody of his granddaughter. The mother and daughter lived with Joe and his wife off and on throughout the little girl's life. The girl never lived with her father. In the initial ruling in June 2020, Clark County Commissioner Karen Scheinberg cited a founded Child Protective Services report against the biological father, essentially that there is reasonable cause to believe abuse or neglect occurred. She said, quote, the best course of action is for the child to remain with the maternal grandparents. The commissioner deemed the father an unfit parent.
The guardianship had a renewal, and unfortunately the new law came out. The Uniform Guardianship Law came out, and he was contesting my guardianship.
The new law went into effect at the beginning of 2021. It says petitioners like Joe need to show a parent is either unwilling or unable to perform the duties of a parent. The girl's biological father, Kyle Belinsky, convinced a judge he was willing and able to raise his daughter. The judge denied Joe's petition for custody. Do you remember how you felt when the judge made the ruling?
Crushed.
Under the prior law, the judge weighed whether the parent was unfit or that putting a child with a biological parent was an actual detriment to the child. For example, taking them out of a place they've been for years to go back with a parent could be detrimental to a child.
Yeah, that language was squarely what was found unconstitutional, right?
State Senator Jamie Peterson sponsored the law change, he says, for a specific reason. The Seattle area Democrat says the prior law was unconstitutional because it made it too hard for parents to regain custody of their children.
In the new statute, if they just present and are now willing and able to parent, then they get to resume their parental rights. One of our main objectives in pursuing that act was to correct the constitutional problems that the courts had identified in our third-party custody statute.
Do you have any doubt that the court made the right decision?
No.
Lisa Toth is Kyle Belinsky's attorney.
My client continuing to have residential time, counseling, follow-up, and being an active part of this child's life proved to the judge over the course of the last 2 years, while everything was pending, that he was capable, that he was able to parent this child.
Toth says the new law recognizes the rights of biological parents in a way the old law did not.
Familiarity and consistency of a child living in a third party's home, whether it's a grandparent or someone else, versus living with a parent, that's not more important.
Do you believe Kyle is still willing and able to parent the child?
Yes.
Where does the case stand from where you're sitting?
The case is closed from our perspective.
Allegations founded.
Yes.
It's not closed from Joe's perspective. He still hopes to get custody of his granddaughter and convince lawmakers to change the law again. He says it needs more teeth.
Being with a biological parent at all costs is not the answer. It's not the answer.
What would you like to see change in the current law?
Willing and able is not a good enough definition and qualifier.
Joe says he'll keep fighting. Senator Peterson says there are other avenues for people like Joe. One, they can argue under a separate law that they're the de facto parent of a child, effectively that they raise the child. Two, they can go through the child welfare system to find a parent unfit and get the child removed from the home.
So, right, police actually charged the biological father after the mother's death. What did you learn about this?
That's one of the big things. Joe feels like the father, Kyle Walensky, was involved in the killing. The evidence shows so far police have not been able to directly tie him to the shooting. However, Kelso police did charge Kyle with obstruction of a law enforcement officer in making false statements to a public servant, among other things, related to the death investigation. He ended up serving a short sentence in jail as part of a plea deal. Kyle's attorney denies that he had any involvement in the shooting of Brittany Tooney. Do you have a story for us? Email us at k2investigates@k2.com or leave a voicemail at 503-231-4205.